This is Meera Gupta, your English teacher, and today in this video I am going to explain the detailed chapter of class 11th. We are not afraid to die if we can all be together by Gordon Cook. So in earlier video I have given the summary of the chapter, and in this video I am going to explain it. For this you must keep your book in front of you and look here carefully and try to understand it. Let's start the chapter. I am going to read para 1. In July 1976, my wife Mary, son Jonathan 6, daughter Suzanne 7, and I set sail from Plymouth, England, to duplicate the round-the-world voyage made 20 years earlier by Captain James Cook. For the longest time, Mary and I, a 37-year-old businessman, had dreamed of sailing in the wake of the famous explorer, and for the past 16 years, we had spent all our leisure time honing our seafaring skills in British waters. Our boat, Wave Walker, a 23-meter, 30-ton wooden-hulled beauty, had been professionally built, and we had spent months fitting it out and testing it in the roughest weather we could find. Now let us see the explanation. First of all, let us see the meaning of difficult words. Here, voyage means a long journey by a sea or space. Leisure here means free time. Honing means improving, and seafaring means regularly traveling by sea. Honing our seafaring skills means improving the skills required to travel by sea. And the last, wooden hulled, a watertight body of a ship. Okay, now see what the narrator is saying in this story. The narrator is a writer himself, and he was 37-year-old businessman along with his wife Mary and 2 children, Jonathan, whose age was 6, and Suzanne, who was only 7 years old, went on a voyage on their ship in July 1976. They started their journey from Plymouth, England. They wanted to complete the sea trip around the world just like the one that had been completed 200 years ago by the very famous captain named James Cook. The narrator and his wife spent 16 years improving their seafaring skills. They got a ship built professionally, and the ship was 23-meter long, 30-ton heavy wooden hull, and its name was Wave Walker. They took several months to test it in the roughest of weathers. Okay. Now see the next para 2. The first leg of our planned 3-year, 1,05,000 kilometer journey passed pleasantly as we sailed down at the west coast of Africa to Cape Town. There, before heading east, we took 2 crewmen, American Larry Wiggle and Swiss Hub Sizzler, to help us tackle one of the world's roughest seas, the Southern Indian Ocean. On our second day out of Cape Town, we began to encounter strong gales. For the next few weeks, they blew continuously. Gales didn't worry me, but the size of waves was alarming, up to 15 meters as high as our main mast. Okay, now see the explanation, but before this, let us see the difficult meaning. Gales means a very strong wind, and mast means a tall upright structure on a boat or a ship. Okay. Here the writer says that the initial phase of 3-year-long journey of 1,05,000 km passed pleasantly. The journey was very pleasant. They sailed down the west coast of Africa to Cape Town. Their journey started from the west coast of Africa for the Cape Town. The narrator hired 2 crewmen before heading towards the east to tackle the roughest sea, the Southern Indian Ocean. The Southern Indian Ocean is considered as the roughest sea. Their names were Larry Wiggle, an American. The first crewman was Larry Wiggle, who was an American, and the second crewman was Herb Ziegler. He was Swiss. On the second day in Cape Town, they encountered a strong wind which continued for several weeks. A strong wind was not a problem, but 15 meters high waves, which were the height of mast, worried the narrator. Okay. Now see para 3. December 25 found us 3,500 km east of Cape Town. That atrocious weather, we had a wonderful holiday, complete with the Christmas tree. New Year's Day saw no improvement in the weather, but we reasoned that it had to change soon. And it did change for the worse. At dawn on January 2, the waves were gigantic. We were sailing with only a small storm jeep and were still making 8 knots. As the ship rose to the top of each wave, we could see endless enormous seas rolling towards us, and screaming of the wind and spray was painful to the ears. To slow the boat down, we dropped the storm jeep and lashed a heavy mooring rope in a loop across the stern. Then we double lashed everything, went through our life raft drill, attached lifeline, donned oilskins and life jackets, and waited. Now see the meaning of difficult words. Atrocious. Atrocious here means bad of a very poor quality. Gigantic means huge or big size. Jib here means a triangular staysail set forward the mast in a ship. Knot here means a unit of speed equal to 1 nautical mile per hour, used especially of ship, aircraft or winds. Now the next meaning is enormous. It means a very large size. Last here means to hit with a lot of force, and mooring the ropes, chains or anchors by or which to boat, ship or buoy is moored. Donned here means put on, and oilskins heavy cotton waterproof with. Now see the explanation. On December 25, they had travelled 3,500 km east of Cape Town. They celebrated Christmas together despite the bad weather. The weather remained the same till New Year's Day, but they hope for it to change soon. And definitely the weather changed, but the weather became very worse. In the early morning of January 2nd, the waves were very huge. They were sailing with a small storm jeep at a speed of 8 knots. When the ship was sailing with the huge waves, they could see the huge sea in front of them. The noise of the waves and strong winds was very painful for the ears. They dropped the storm jeep to slow down the ship and hit a heavy mooring rope. across the back part of the ship in a loop. They lashed everything with double force. They put on their oilskins and life jackets, attached lifeline and went through the life raft drill, and only they have to wait, and they waited. Okay. Now see para 4. The first indication of impending disaster came at about 6 p.m. with an ominous silence. The wind dropped and the sky immediately grew dark. Then came a growing roar. An enormous cloud towered aft of the ship. With horror, I realized that it was not a cloud, but a wave like no other I had ever seen. It appeared perfectly vertical and almost twice of the height of the other waves, with a frightful breaking crest. Now, see the explanation. First of all, let us see the difficult meaning. Impending. Impending here means about to happen. Ominous silence. It means unpleasant or threatening silence. Aft, AFT. Aft here means near the stern of the ship. Frightful, very unpleasant, shocking, and crest here means reach the top of a wave. Okay. Now let us see the explanation of this chapter. Around 6 p.m. an unpleasant silence rolled over. It was an indication of a disaster which was about to happen. The wind suddenly dropped and the sky was darker with heavy clouds. A huge cloud was coming toward the stern of the ship, but later the narrator realized it was a huge wave. The wave was perfectly vertical and it was twice the height of the previous waves. Now the waves become more dangerous. They saw with top of the wave looking unpleasant due to its height. Now everything gone changed. The weather became worse and the wave it was very gigantic and the sight was very unpleasant. Now see para 5. The roar increased to thunder as the stern moved up the face of the wave, and for a moment I thought we might ride over it, but then a tremendous explosion shook the deck. A torrent of green and white water broke over the ship. My head smashed into the wheel and I was aware of flying overboard and sinking below the waves. I accepted my approaching death, and as I was losing consciousness, I felt quite peaceful. Okay. Now, what do you mean by tremendous? Tremendous means very great in amount. Shook here means vibrate. Deck here is a floor of ship. Torrent, it means a fast moving stream of water, and smash, shatter or violently broken. Okay, now let's see the explanation of para 5. Here in this para, the writer is saying that the thunder increased and the wave moved the stern up. They thought that it would not do any damage, but a huge explosion vibrated the deck. A strong moving stream of green and white water broke over the ship. The narrator's head smashed in the wheel of ship. He flew overboard and sank below the waves. The narrator accepted that his death was approaching and started losing his consciousness, and he felt quite peaceful. Why quite peaceful? Because of unconsciousness. He became unconsciousness, and during this period he felt quite peaceful. Now let us see para 6. Unexpectedly, my head popped out of water. A few meters away, wave walker was near capsizing, her mast almost horizontal. Then a wave hurtled up upright. My lifeline jerked taut. I grabbed the guard's rails and sailed through the air into wave walker's main boom. Subsequent waves tossed me around the deck like a rag doll. My left ribs cracked, my mouth filled with blood and broken teeth. Somehow, I found the wheel lined up the stern for the next wave and hung on. Water, water everywhere. I could feel that the ship had water below, but I dare not abandon the wheel to investigate. Suddenly, the front hatch was thrown open and Mary appeared. We are sinking, she screamed. The decks are smashed. We are full of water. Take the wheel, I shouted as I scrambled for the hatch. Now see the difficult meaning. Capsizing. Capsizing here means be overturned in the water. And hurled means throw with a great force. Taut here is stretched or pulled tightly. Now boom here means pole that control the angle and shape of the sail. Scrambled here means climb, claw one's way, and hatch is door. Now see the explanation. What happened? The narrator's head popped out of water. The ship was about to overturn, but a wave turned her upright. His lifeline jacket was stretched. He grabbed the guardrails and sailed to the ship's main pole. The waves tossed him around the deck. He was injured as his left rib was cracked. His mouth filled with blood and he had a broken tooth. He found the wheel, lined the stern for the next wave and waited. There was water everywhere. Means everywhere, wherever the poet was singing, everywhere only the water can be seen. Water, water everywhere. The narrator could feel water below the ship, but he didn't leave the wheel alone. Suddenly, the front door opened and his wife, Mary, came screaming that they were sinking. She said, "The decks are smashed. We are full of water." The narrator handed her the wheel and climbed towards the door. Now see the next para. Para 7. Larry and her were pumping like madmen. Broken timbers hung at crazy angles, and the whole starboard side inwards. Clothes, crockery, charred tins, and toys lost about in deep water. I half swam, half crawled into the children's cabin. "Are you all right?" I asked. "Yes," they answered from the upper bunk. "But my head hurts a bit," said Sue, pointing to a big bump above her eyes. I had no time to worry about bumped heads. After finding a hammer, screws, and canvas, I struggled back on deck with the starboard side based open. We were taking water with each wave that broke over us. If I couldn't make some repairs, we would surely sink. Okay. Now see the explanation of this chapter. Let us see the difficult word. Timbers here means wood board used in building up a ship. Starboard here means side of a ship which is on the right side when one is forcing forward. Sloshed here means move through liquid with a splashing sound, and barged here means strike hard or hit. The crewmen Larry and Hub were pumping the water very fast. They were the crewmen and they were pumping the water very fast. The timbers of the ship were broken and were hanging badly. The starboard of the ship had sunk. Clothes, crockery, charts, tins and toys were roaming around in deep water. They scattered everywhere. The narrator swam and crawled into the children's cabin and asked the children whether they were all right. The children replied yes. Sue, his daughter, complained about a big bump on her head. But the narrator didn't pay much attention to it, as his major concern was to save them. The narrator found screws, hammer, and canvas. He went back to the deck. The broken starboard side was letting so much water in, and if the narrator could not fix the problem, they would all sink in the sea. Okay? The next para and the last para of this video. Somehow I managed to stretch canvas and secure waterproof hatch covers across the gaping holes. Some water continued to stream below, but most of it was now being deflected over the side. More problems arose when our hand pumps started to block up with the debris floating around the cabin and electric pumps short-circuited. The water level rose threateningly. Back on the deck, I found that our two spare hand pumps had been wrenched overboard. Along with the forestay sail, the jeep and dignities and the main anchor. Then I remembered we had another electric pump under the chart room. I connected it to an out pipe and was thankful to find it worked. Now see the difficult meaning. Deflected. Deflected here means turn aside. Canvas, it is a strong unbleached cloth. Debris here means rubbish. Wrenched means pull suddenly or removed. Forestay here is a rope to support ship's foremast. Now see the explanation. The narrator stretches the canvas cloth and screwed the waterproof hatch which covered the gaping holes. Some water streamed below and some was now deflected over the side. The hand pump was blocked as rubbish was floating around the cabins and entered it. The electric pump short-circuited. As the water level rose, the narrator found two hand pumps had been removed along with the rope, jeep, a small boat and the main anchor. He found another electric pump under the chart room. He connected it to an out pipe and it started working. Okay? Now, only here in this video till para 8 you have to read. In next video I will continue explaining the next para. Till then, take care. Goodbye.